everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. We are not going to be staying in the sewing room for this whole video because I am off to costume college this week, which means we need to finish the Rose costume. We're so close, and honestly most of it is hand sewing. So I told you all of this in the end of the last video, but if you didn't watch all the way to the end or if you haven't seen that video, let me just quickly go over what needs to happen. So on the hat, I have to figure out how to keep the organdy from like poking out in various places. So that might involve some extra tacking, but mostly I have to tack this bow kind of everywhere. Right now it is just fully pinned everywhere onto the hat, and that needs to be sewn in place. So that's a lot of hand sewing with a thimble because I'm sewing through the straw. Unfortunately, this ribbon is just not going to be able to be removable because it needs the hat to be able to support itself. So yeah, lots and lots of hand sewing there and lots of hand sewing elsewhere. I need to sew on the rest of the buttons on the jacket. I still have to sew on the buttons that are on the back of the skirt, plus the hooks and eyes at the waist of the skirt. Ideally, I'd love to sew on some little cuffs with some little trim here, like fake shirt cuffs, and mostly I have to do the dickey. So that's what we're going to start with, the dickey, because it's the most obvious thing here and what I can't take with me on a plane because it's machine sewn. So let's go ahead and we'll make a dickey. So I don't actually own a dickey pattern, but Vogue 9000 has a collar that's similar that I can just round off, and it's a dolman sleeve, so I can just really easily cut kind of the bib shape that I need for a dickey out of that, and it still has that front button placket. So what that means is I'm basically just going into the pattern, and I want my shoulders to be 5.5 inches wide, so I'm going to cut that plus seam allowance, and then I'm going to square this down. For the back, I want it to be 13 inches long. For the front, I want 16 inches, and just kind of cut that. It's really more like trapezoidal, I guess, than rectangular because it's going to come in a little narrower at the bottom, but just cut that shape out of there for the front and back pieces. This pattern, since it's meant to be a dress, shows like the bodice and then also the facing, and the facing is just this kind of narrow bit right here. I feel like where this is would actually kind of show potentially with once you turn in the seam allowance and stuff in my neckline, and I feel like it just makes more sense to make the whole front 2 layers. I'm making this out of cotton sateen, by the way, so that's what I've cut it out here. But yeah, I definitely need facing for that buttonhole area and for the neckline so that I can finish in the collar and everything. But I feel like where this is, I don't know, maybe it's just that I need it to be a little wider, but at that point, I mean, you can see where the shape of my actual piece is. I feel like at that point, might as well probably just make it 2 layers. I have cut out all of my pieces. These are the 4 front pieces, 1 back piece because it's on the fold, 2 collar pieces. I still need to cut out the interfacing for the collar, but that's how I've kind of rounded out the edge of the collar, and hopefully that will work because I'm not doing a mock-up because I don't have time. So yeah, that's all of the pieces, and then I believe the back of the neckline here is probably just going to be bound with bias tape. That's not going to show anyway, and then the front will basically be enclosed by the fact that there's a lining piece. So I'm going to go ahead, and once I cut out the interfacing, I'm going to serge around the edges of everything. I'm just going to use fusible interfacing for this, so it should be like nice and easy. And yeah, we'll just start the assembly and I'll kind of show you the steps as I go. So talking about trims here really quickly for the dickey collar, and then also this is supposed to be the same trim for the cuffs. When I was like watching Titanic, looking at various references, etc., what was appearing to me was ball trim. This isn't a good example of ball trim. This is what I could find at Joann's, but it's those tiny little like puff balls that just go all the way around. And then I saw this image right here that came up on Facebook literally yesterday. And this is actually a photograph that somebody took from their visit to the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures down in LA. And as you can see from this picture, it's not ball trim. It's actually like a little diamond shaped trim, which I naturally don't have. And I'm flying to LA in 3 days. So I could use the ball trim, but I already didn't like it. So what I do have in my stash, very limited amount because I literally have this much. So this is not going to be enough for the cuffs. This is only going to be enough for the collar. Who knows if I will even get to the cuffs or not. I hope I will. I mean, I will at some point, but I don't know if I will by costume college. But I'm going to use this, which looks like this, for the collar, at least for now. However, just like the ball trim that I had found at Joann's, this has like 0 seam allowance. I mean, as you saw, it's super, super narrow. And so as much as I don't want to give myself more hand sewing to do because I have so much hand sewing to do already, I think that there is no good way to like do this by machine, to apply this by machine. Normally you would kind of like take both your collar pieces and you would put the trim facing the inside, so like facing this way, sandwich it together with right sides together on your collar pieces, and then turn the whole thing out and you'd have a lovely trim already applied. Again, that works great when you have some sort of a seam allowance on your trim. Not so much with this. So we're gonna have another hand sewing project to the mix. We are just gonna put right sides together of the 2 collar pieces as is and turn them right sides out. And then we're going to apply that trim by hand around the edges. So I don't know if I have my roll line right on here, but I think this is going to work. So that means that I can go ahead and put the facing pieces on, like the lining inner pieces, and I can hem the edges, and yeah, then I guess it'll be buttonholes and some facing or bias tape for the back of the neckline. So what you're seeing here is that I have kind of encased the front panels with the lining portion, and I've done them right sides together, and then I clipped all of my corners, and now I can just turn these out and press them. And you can see the collar is now fully encased in the front. I do still need to do like bias tape or whatever along the collar in the back. And then in the back, for the part that hangs down, I've just turned a little narrow hem, and I'm going to stitch that in place on the machine. And then once I have bound off the neckline here, I can go ahead and try it on, make sure that everything works well, and then put the buttonholes in. And I think other than the trim around the collar, that'll be it. The dickey is now ready for hand sewing. You can see I've got my little bit of bias tape in the neck area there, and then I did my buttonhole, so I just need to slit those open and mark where the buttons will go on this side, and then I also need to add the lace around the collar. So I'm gonna go do all that hand sewing. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. I don't know why my brain told me that I had to stitch every little bit of this down when I basically always use a glue gun for hats. So yeah, I'm going around now and I'm gluing all of the places that I had it pinned in place. So that's around the crown, that is like bits of the bow up here, even like behind the bow back here. And frankly, I'm even gluing in the cotton organdy lower down into the bow so that it hopefully doesn't work its way out up the top. And I've glued little bits of it down to the base, both the organdy and like the backs of the bows. And then the bows are also like glued to each other in one spot. So just like tiny little dots of glue, but it's keeping everything in place, and I think it's gonna be perfect and so much faster. I have one other glue trick up my sleeve because the top of this crown keeps puffing out. So I cut out a circle of really, really thick cardboard that I'm hoping is going to be thick enough, and it is the size of the crown up here. And what I'm going to attempt to do is put like a little spot of glue in the center and then also around the outsides, and give myself from the inside obviously a nice solid base that will hopefully keep the center of the crown adhered down to the cardboard and prevent it from poofing up. Well, I feel like it sure looks nice and flat now, so I guess we'll just have to see if it will actually hold in the long term. But this means that the hat is now finished! Yay, finally, especially because I only have one more day till I leave. I also today got all of the buttons sewn on my coat, same with on the back. So the coat, I mean, other than the cuffs, which I would love to do, but let's face it, I don't think they're gonna happen this go around. The coat is otherwise finished. Though I guess I should say one of the things that the actual Titanic coat has is 3 little hooks and what I believe are thread bars right over here. If I have time, I'll go ahead and add those. I also don't know if I need them yet, so I want to try it on one more time with just the buttons and see if I even need those hooks. And then for the final touch on the hat, I have actually kind of glued a little bit of this netting in. So basically I just put glue around the edges so that it would hopefully not like peek out the edges, but this provides a cushion and also lifts the hat off of my head because this crown is larger than my head. And it does a better job of being a cushion than like foam, because I did try that first. But yeah, this does somehow much better at protecting my head from the hard cardboard that is now in the crown of this hat. So now the hat is complete. I am here here at the Queen Mary in my rose boarding suit, and we are going to go have a wonderful time just walking around the ship, looking at stuff, and going to lunch at the Promenade Cafe. And I'm so excited. This is actually the first time that I've put everything on because I did not have time to try it on at home with the dickey. So yeah, I think everything looks really good. Let's go explore the Queen Mary. She doesn't look much bigger than the Mauritania. It was so much fun to wear this on the Queen Mary. Let's talk about a little bit of a wrap up here on this project. And yeah, I'm just so thrilled with how it turned out, honestly. It is basically everything that I could have ever wanted. So a couple of like, I guess, housekeeping notes. First off with the dickey, since I had not tried on the dickey, like, you know, kind of almost at any point. It is actually somehow a little bit too large around the neck compared to Rose's. So you can see here probably I'm actually pulling it a little tighter with the tie, and it's kind of coming and overlapping there, which means then that it is hiding a lot of the tie. I chose this button, but it is literally pinned on right now because I don't love it. I would love to get something closer to her tie pin at some point for this cosplay. So yeah, and then I didn't have time to sew it on. So it is just pinned on. I do like my stand-in hat pin. I think that that looks pretty nice. That is also like sort of, it's not really a button, but I think it's basically a decorative button. And I just sewed that into the hat. I think I'd already told you guys that. I do want to add a hook and bar right here. I don't know if hers actually had that or not. I feel like I had seen some hooks there, but it is definitely practical because otherwise I find that it wants to open too far and it then shows the edge of my velvet, like the roll line. Like I wouldn't mind it opening a little bit more so that we get a little bit more of the tie, because I feel like hers does, but I don't want it to go far enough where you see that edge of the velvet down here because I didn't do the full lapel. I only did like the little bit. So in hindsight, I probably would have done a little bit more lapel, but overall, I still think that that is really good. I don't think that I need to put the hooks on right over here that the original had. It had 3 hooks in addition to the button. I don't think I need those at all. It doesn't seem to be pulling at all. It seems fine. So yeah, and then the only other thing that I would like to do is I would eventually like to add the cuffs, and I'd love to find gloves that are a little bit closer to hers. I was just using a pair of vintage gloves that I use really frequently and it worked, but like it was nothing special. So that would be something down the road as I like improve upon this, because I know I'm gonna wear this again. I really, really love this. I know I'm going to be wearing it to the Titanic exhibit that is coming to Seattle this summer. So yeah, I will be wearing this a lot more. And I'm sure that I will be posting lots and lots of pictures to Instagram. But hopefully you guys enjoyed all of the finished footage from the Queen Mary at least. It was really fun to just like wander around the ship, and we did one of my favorite activities on the Queen Mary, which is wander the ship and try doorknobs and see what doors open. And we actually found a couple of rooms that opened for us, so that was really, really cool. A couple of those rooms that you saw footage from, they were not open to the public and they were just like accidentally open. Yay. So yeah, I had a wonderful time and I love this cosplay overall. Oh, there is a pin in the skirt, straight pin, that is stuck there and I can't get it out. I don't know, I found it after the Queen Mary today, and yeah, can't get it out. Anyway, that's going to be it for me on this project. I hope that you've enjoyed this whole series. If you haven't seen all of the rest of the videos where I really made the bulk of this, they are all going to be linked right up here and also down below in the description. But if you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and sometimes additional costuming or sewing content out on Saturdays. But I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to take this time to thank all of my absolutely wonderful patrons, but particularly those patrons in the Romantic, Victorian, and Edwardian level tiers, who are Jean, Dan, Kim, Audra, Emily, Janet, Deborah, Max, Liz, Robin, Kimberly, Nurse Anita, Chaos Chan, Linda, Jen, and Dale. Thank you all so, so much. I could not do this without you. And thank you all for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!